Probably the top question we get from people who are considering getting divorced is, how much is this going to cost? And if you've talked to many lawyers, you're usually going to get a kind of cagey answer. It depends. And that's really annoying, and it's also true. It depends. Now, the range from uncontested to contested divorces is something between like $13,000 and $23,000, depending on who you ask, to give you a range. But that's not the super uncontested, nobody's fighting stuff, or the War of the Roses, burn it down, scorched earth stuff. So there's a lot of wiggle room there. But first, let's talk about an uncontested divorce. In terms of an uncontested divorce, no matter how agreed you guys are, there is still a certain amount of steps that have to be taken to get your divorce done. You have things like filing fees and transcript costs and court things you have to do, okay? So those, think in terms of at least several $100s for filing documents, the initial filing fees and all of that, plus whatever a lawyer would charge you to do it. I would say for even a relatively straightforward, uncontested divorce, you need to budget at least about $5,000 and maybe a little more, maybe a little bit less. It depends on your situation. But if you guys come in, you have terms, you know how stuff is going to be divided, you know how you want the kids' stuff to work, and it's pretty straightforward, I would say you could get it done for about $5,000, but fighting and complexity cost extra. And that's where we get into the cost of contested divorce. Now it really can cost you, the sky is the limit. It depends on how much you two are going to fight. Remember, we said that an uncontested divorce, $5,000 or so, and I know that's still a lot of money, don't get me wrong. But when it comes to contested, it depends on how many issues, how complex is your estate, how many different assets, are we splitting up businesses, do we have a bunch of deed work to do we have truly litigious, narcissistic, burn it down sort of parties? That number can go up into the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, not exaggerating. Ultimately, how much is your divorce going to cost? It's up to you. Fighting costs extra. One of the ways you can save money in your divorce is understanding how lawyers bill. Once you have that in your frame of mind, it will really enable you to save money by asking different questions at different times in different ways. So here's how it works. With an attorney, they bill for the time spent thinking about, working on, strategizing about your case. Basically, if they're not at the beach with the margarita with their boyfriend and they're working on stuff for your family, you're going to get billed. This is how we earn our living. So if they write an email to you, text message you, have a phone call, go to court, do case research, review all those documents, those text messages that you sent, you're going to get billed. Most attorneys that I know bill in what's called a 1/10 of an hour, a 0.1. You'll hear a lawyer talk about a 0.1. What that really means is in a 6-minute increment. So if you have a phone conversation, an email, or a text message that takes the attorney less than 6 minutes to deal with it, that'll be a 0.1. 7 minutes and over, that'll go into a 0.2, and so on and so forth after that. So you want to think through, rather than send a bunch of different emails throughout the day or a million different text messages throughout the day, bulk group your questions and your communications with your lawyer so they can focus for 15 minutes and get it done instead of 5 minutes 6 times today, right? Because one of them is done in a 0.3 and one of them is done in a 0.5. So that's how you can shave off some time. And lawyers have to prepare for everything that we do. Because believe me, you may try to tell a lawyer, I don't need you to prepare. I just need you to show up and do it. We know better than to do that because everybody's tried to sort of get there and do their best and wing it because the client can't afford it. And then whatever the result is, the client says, well, you weren't fully prepared and that's your fault. So they're not going to do that. So they've got to review all of the documents that you've sent them, review all of your emails, review all of the recordings you've sent in order to get ready. So think through the balance you have to strike between keeping your lawyer informed and understanding what's happening in your case and managing your legal fees within the budget that you have. And lawyers, in terms of billing, that's how they do it on an ongoing basis. But the first thing that'll happen whenever you reach out to a lawyer's office is they're probably going to want you to pay for some sort of a consultation, pay some money to get access to talking to a lawyer. At our firm, that's not how we do it. We offer free case evaluations with a member of our team so we can assess whether or not you have a case, whether we're a good fit for you, and whether you're a good fit for us before you ever spend a dime. But a lot of law firms, what they'll do is you'll call up and be like, hey, I need to talk to a lawyer. And they'll be like, okay, cool. Please give me $250 to $600. And you're like, booga booga. Okay, I guess I better. This is how it works. Okay. So then what you'll do is you'll have your consultation. At the end of it, everyone's like, oh my gosh, best fit ever. You're the best lawyer for me. You're the best client for me. Yay. Then what they'll want is to get a retainer from you. And a retainer is basically like a big fat security deposit for this lawyer. You're paying them to take on the conflict, to take on you as a client, to work on your divorce or other family law issue. And then from there, that's where the daily billing will happen against that retainer. Now, depending on the kind of law firm you go with, some lawyers ask for one retainer up front. They do work for a while, and then 2, 3, 4 months later, they're like, oh, your $5,000 retainer is out. Your $20,000 retainer is out. Give us another $5,000 or $20,000. Or maybe you've got mediation coming or a trial, and they're like, we need $50,000, like just depending. And they sort of do it ad hoc along the way. Or law firms like my law firm, we do what's called an evergreen retainer. So you put down that initial money in the retainer account, and then all of the work that happens on a given month is billed against it, but you refill your retainer back to the original amount. And the reason why we do this is so that there is still enough gas in the tank to get you to where we're going. I always explain it like, look, you want to get to El Paso, but we're starting out down in Brownsville, and we got to drive all the way from Brownsville all the way to El Paso. We can't run out of gas in Waco. So we keep that retainer full so that we can continue to provide the legal service that your family needs, secure our time, have our paralegals do the work on your file. So you need to think about whenever you're hiring a firm, is it a one-time deposit up front and then you have these big, huge chunks as you go along? Or do they do an evergreen situation so you get bills more often that are usually smaller? And then pick the version that's right for you and your family. Are you considering doing your divorce yourself in Texas? That would mean you're a pro se litigant. So if you're going to pursue a pro se divorce, it's not going to be without costs. The very first thing you're going to encounter is that to file for divorce, you've got to pay the state of Texas a filing fee. And that's going to be $300 to $400 depending on, when the legislature last met or when you're watching this video. So no matter what, it's going to cost you several $100s to get this process started. You may have some filing fees along the way, but I guess that's technically all it has to cost you in real dollars is that initial filing fee and maybe a little bit more stuff with the court as time goes on. That's in terms of dollars you for sure have to pay. You're probably not calculating the dollars you're going to end up paying to a lawyer to eventually get you divorced when you're not able to pull it off yourself. And look, that is not an insult. It is complicated and it is hard. And I am a lawyer who literally does this for my job. And I have to ask a paralegal or somebody on my team now, which form do we need at this office and this court and this jurisdiction? Because it's so different in every place. So don't beat yourself up if you're having a hard time doing that. It is tough because it's complicated. It just is what it is. You're probably going to end up with a lawyer because here's the thing you may not know is a court is not just going to sign off on whatever document you and your spouse bring into their courtroom. That has to be reviewed by an attorney to make sure it covers all of the relevant pieces of information you need about the kids and about the kids' health insurance and different stuff about your property. It's in the Texas Family Code. So a judge is not going to be like, oh, y'all thought that was a good idea? Cool, bye. That's not how it's going to go. And in certain counties, the waiting time to get one of those attorneys, called a staff attorney, to review your decree can be months and months, even a year or better. So that's likely where your divorce will get stalled out. You may be able to figure out how to get you to there, and that's relatively doable, but it's actually getting the thing completed that is really difficult. It's what we do all day long, every single day at our office, and still getting it from the decree is to the judge to your divorce is granted. It's a whole thing. So you'll probably need a lawyer to help you with that at some point along the way. Are you trying to find a lawyer who will take your case pro bono? The most likely way that's going to happen is if you go through the agency that's local to your town or your city that services people in your situation. So, like for instance, in Austin, there's Volunteer Legal Services or VLS. Our firm at Hembree Bell Law partners with them and has taken cases over the years and worked at different phone clinics so that we can join with them to help people who meet their pretty strict income guidelines get out of sticky and difficult spots. So if that's you and you're just not able to afford a lawyer, you aren't able to figure out how to do this yourself, then I suggest you reach out to your local agency and see if you meet their income requirements so then that they can connect you with competent, experienced local lawyers who are able to work with them and be under their malpractice and help you and your family in your situation.